Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.
Hello and welcome to the Smells Like Infinite Sadness podcast. I'm your host, Michael Taylor. For those of you who don't know, I run the website, smellslikeinfinitesadness.com. It's a blog covering the best alternative rock from the 80s and 90s up to present day. I'm a proud middle-aged Gen Xer who is still obsessed with the music of his youth and loves to talk about it. And today I'm joined by the legendary David J. Haskins, better known as David J. of Bauhaus and Love and Rockets. He's here to talk about two powerful new releases, a poetry collection titled Rhapsody, Threnody, and Prayer, and a companion album called The Mother Tree, his most personal work to date, created in tribute to his late mother. In today's chat, we discuss memory, grief, creativity, his upcoming tour, other projects in the works, and what's next for Love and Rockets. I've spoken to David twice before, and he's always a pleasure to talk to, and this proved no different. So enjoy the interview, and stick around later because we'll be closing with the epic title track from The Mother Tree. All right, well, thanks for taking the time to talk to me today. I appreciate it.
Sure, yeah.
So I guess starting off, I know this has been in the works for a while. A lot of this was prose from back in the 90s, if I understand correctly. And this was recorded during the pandemic. So it's been quite a long time getting from your initial planning to being released. What made you decide to take such a long time to work on this? And what made you decide this is the right time to get it out now?
Well, it's not really that I decided to take a long time. It's just how things panned out. And as far as the writing the poetry, they come when they come. And I had a kind of a collection, a cache of poems, if you like, going right back to, God, the earliest one in there, I think, is 1977. Oh, wow. So, and then the latest one was actually written when the book was going to print. And I came up with one called Aftermath that I thought would really fit. And so we managed to squeeze that one in. So it's a span of those decades. And it's the first book of poetry I've had published. And it ties in with the album. And that came about because I did have it in mind to record a spoken word with music album around about 2019. And I went to see, it's fortuitous really. I went to see a friend of mine perform Nora Keys, who I just happened to bump into the night before her show, a little place in downtown LA called Ham and Eggs. And she said, "I'll come to my gig. I've got a new duo." So I went to check her out and she was great. And then she was on before the main band, who I wasn't familiar with, called Rakia. I thought, well, I'll just stay and check out maybe a song, And then I was just riveted for the whole of their set, and it was all instrumental music. And it occurred to me as they were playing that they would be an ideal backing group for this spoken word, vague spoken word project that I had percolating. And beyond that, maybe to work on some songs with them. And the lineup was acoustic guitar, keyboards, and violin. And there was evidently an element of improvisation going on. And they were brilliant musicians, you could tell just after like 10 seconds, and really good. And I loved how they were listening to each other. It was apparent to me they were listening intently to each other and responding. And I wanted that kind of responsive group. And so I put it to them, that we go in and to the studio and try out a track. So they were up for it. So we were in the studio within a couple of days. And then we recorded The Mother Tree. And that was in one take.
Oh, wow.
I sent them the piece before, and I just gave them carte blanche really to come up with whatever they felt. And then I didn't hear it prior to the actual recording session. I didn't want to hear it. And I got them to just play me a sample before we went in to record. And I really couldn't fault it. Maybe I told them to just slow it down a little bit. That's all. And I just heard like 20 seconds of it, and it's like, yeah, that's the right kind of thing. Let's do it. So we then went in and recorded one take, vocals and all. and it worked out really well. It's a long piece. It's like 20 minutes, the whole of side one of the record. But then, and then I wanted to do more with them, of course. But then the pandemic hit. It was right on the edge of that, when we first went in. So that had to be postponed for a few months, but we did eventually go back and we finished the album in a day. And I mixed it all in 2 days. So it's like 4 days for the whole thing.
That's very impressive because there's a lot going on. And one thing I was curious about for the Mother Tree, since it is spoken word and music, do you find it different making music for spoken word versus a sung vocal, or is it just the same process for you?
No, it's a different process. I mean, I was really the director and the producer in that I didn't write any of that music. It was down to the 3 musicians. But I have written my own music for spoken word, and with that, I'm really just sort of, if there's an internal rhythm, if there's a meter to it, then I'm reacting to that, and I let that influence the way the music goes. It comes from the words, and it's all to support. The music is there to support the words and to color the words. With songs, I mean, it's much more. There's a more rigidity to it and more structure, and it's sort of in blocks. There's a verse, another verse, a middle 8 bridge. There's a chorus. Very structured, very contained. Mm-hmm. But with spoken word, it's more expansive and more open, and I really love that.
Yeah, I do too. And I was curious. I know there's an accompanying book. You've got the Rhapsody, Threnody, and Prayer as well. That's going to be with the release. What made you decide to do a dual format like that? Was it something just some experimental, or how did you think?
I was encouraged by Chandra, who runs the Erototox label, who also publishes books, and he asked, if I had more poetry, and I said, yeah, I've got quite a bit that's never been published. So I sent it to him, and he really liked it, so he wanted to publish it. So it's a very much working hand in hand with that label publishing house. Yeah.
Well, I really love the title track that you mentioned. As someone who's lost a parent, I found that very moving and very intense. Was that difficult? I know that the music was by the musicians who did that separately, but was that a difficult thing to do, both to write and to perform, or was that enough time has passed where it wasn't so difficult or emotional to get through?
It was cathartic to write it. I wouldn't say. Well, there was some difficulty in some of it because it's very honest. It's a very pretty nitty gritty.
Yeah,
I'm talking about the relationship between my mum and my dad, which wasn't easy. But I wrote it when she passed. Like the 3 days following that, I was up writing the main body of that piece. And then I put it aside, and then it was completed after I'd received her ashes, and I'd released those ashes, and I talk about that in the poem, as you know. And that's when it was done. And then I really did just set it aside. I didn't revisit it until the idea came up to make this album. And that's, it's such a big piece, and it had to be like this, the main piece, and it was the first piece we did. And it was good that I got it in the first take, because it's a bit it's very, very emotional, yeah, and harrowing to a degree, and but beautiful, and in the recording there was more catharsis. Definitely, it was a very, very a very big release, and there it is. It exists. I'm glad it exists, and it's wonderful if others can take comfort from it. And I've had a few friends. I played to a few friends, and who've been in the situation where their parent is is on the way out, or they've just lost their mum, and it's been very, very moving for them as well.
I definitely found it that way. It was very, very, very moving. So I was very impressed by that.
Tears on my coffee table.
I can imagine. There's also a lot of location involved in this album. You've got, Ashes and Tea references New York. You've got Elegy for Beale Street with Memphis, and then you've got both the locations mentioned in your title track and in Incarnation to Hearn. So I don't really recall a lot of your past work really being so locale specific. Is this something different, or has it always kind of inspired you, locations in your past work?
There's always been an element of that. Some of the deeper cuts, I've always written on the road, and I've always been inspired by different places that I've been visiting. New Orleans is quite a big one for me. New York again, and LA. So no, it does come through, that sense of location, and I love street names, and I love evoking the atmosphere of place. Well, so it's always been there.
And the music really captures the locations too. Did you give them directions like, give me a New York kind of vibe, or a
onto the words? And it's let that come from the words, and let that just sort of be a natural process. They would take it on board, and they really listened, obviously. And when we were recording, they were very much listening to each other and listening to me, and we were all being very responsive and reactive to each other. So it was very alive in the moment. All of the recordings, and all of the recordings were first take. I think one was the second take. So very spontaneous.
Well, it's really impressive, because being spontaneous, because it really sounds like it was very thought out, and really there's a lot going on, but it's a definite structure to it.
Yeah, but they only had a loose structure to those pieces before we came to record. We purposely decided to keep it like that, so it was open, so that it could go somewhere not especially planned.
And then, you've got the book as well. And I was reading in the press release that you've got, you mentioned like Jack Kerouac, there's some Ian Curtis and Kurt Cobain figure into some of that somewhere. How did you decide which poems would be best with music, and which ones would strictly be prose? What made those selections for music different than the others?
I never intended to set any of the other pieces to music, but I had set aside the pieces that are on the album with the idea of, this could work with music. So it was in the back of my mind, I could almost hear that music in my head before it existed. It just came from the poems themselves, It's just after I'd written them, it would occur to me, this could work with some music one day. So they were in a little file, one day, maybe add some music, and I did.
And then certain ones you're just like, this stands alone better, and I'm just going to keep that as strictly.
It just didn't occur to me that it needed music, or that it was for music. It's almost like the poem itself speaks to you and makes a request. Set me to music, please.
And you've got a handful of dates you're doing. Is there any plan to expand more shows, or are you just going to stick to those 5 dates? And
no, I've actually been adding dates, and I've been approached since I announced those dates. I've been approached by promoters, and I'm filling in the spaces now. I was going to do some more in August. Actually putting that together now. And I'll keep adding, and then also got an offer to do some dates in October. I will have another album out in October. So there'll be a rich pool of new material to draw from. And the one that's coming out then is it's actually an interesting and unusual project. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the last record that came out, all the demos.
No, not
from the Attic.
Oh, okay.
It's a 3-album set of literally of really basic demos. It's just me with an acoustic guitar, very occasionally a piano or keyboard. And it was released on Independent Project Records. And that came about, again, more serendipity at play here, because they approached me asking if I had anything that was in my archives, unreleased, something lo-fi, demo-y. And it's just so happened that I just had a couple of shoe boxes full of cassettes digitized. A friend in Budapest volunteered to do this, and so I shipped them all over to him. And he's just sent them the files back. So I had all these files, the good quality files, and I sent them to the label. And they say, "Well, yeah, this is ideal, you know." And I said, "Well, would you want to cherry pick 10?" They said, "No, we want to put them all out." I said, "Are you insane?" But they did, practically all of them, and then did a really nice, beautiful artistic presentation. There's different tiers of this release, and there's a super deluxe box set, and in those, aside from the 3 albums, the vinyl albums, there's 3 CDs, there's prints, there some stamps. And each one has an actual cassette, one of the actual cassettes, my cassettes.
Oh, cool.
With my screen over, and so they're all obviously different, you know. And in a nice little box, presentation box, and they're all numbered. So that came out, and then as a follow-up, what I'm going to do is, and this again was a suggestion of the label, I went back in and I did cherry pick, like 11 tracks, and I've re-recorded them with a full band, fully produced, and rewritten some of the lyrics, and that will be the album. So that's Tracks from the Attic Revisited.
I think there's something really cool about like revisiting demos and kind of seeing the building blocks of songs come along the way. What was it like listening to those after all these years?
It was curious because quite a few of them, I could not remember them. I couldn't remember doing these songs. Some of them, I didn't even know I had no clue what they were about. And especially as the lyrics are pretty surreal in some cases, and pretty out there. And also, of course, I mean, some of them weren't fully finished songs. It's just sort of like notation for me with these pieces that are forming, you know, and sometimes I'm improvising lyrics. So I'm doing like, you know, stream of consciousness, you know, gobbledygook. It's just coming. I'm just like filling it. I'm on a melody, so I'm filling in with nonsense. But it's got a kind of surreality that is curiously appealing, I think. But it was a bastard trying to. They wanted me to write all these lyrics out, you know.
Yeah,
and I couldn't. Quite often, I could not discern, to save my life, what the hell I was singing. But I was listening time and time again. They had a girl in the office trying to do it, and her interpretations were very amusing. Some of them were better than the actual lyrics, actually. Yeah, so sometimes I was just completely stuck, so I just wrote, you know, not discernible, something like that. Yeah, so... That was a harrowing task.
Do you have anything else in the works after those releases, or just kind of?
I do. I've got quite a lot actually recorded. I've got about 8 finished albums. Believe it or not.
Whoa!
We're different collaborations and a new solo album, which is a double album. There's a couple of concept albums. I don't really want to say too much about them because I don't want to give it away, you know. But I've got a lot stockpiled, enough for the next 3 years, you know.
Excellent. That gives people a lot to look forward to then.
Yeah, I hope so.
And this is slightly off topic, so please forgive me, but I did see Love and Rockets tour a couple of years ago when you did the reunion tour, and it was an absolutely amazing show. Do you consider that kind of like that was like the swan song for the band, or did that give you all any thoughts about making new material, or just kind of was a one-off and that was it?
There's no thought to making new material, but there's a lot of interest in the group doing more gigs, and we had a blast on those both tours that we did, and we really were into it, and in a live capacity, I think it still is very relevant and it connects, and we deliver,
Yeah, it was great.
So quite possible, more shows. It won't be until next year because we're busy with other projects this year. So yeah, that's feasible, possible.
Great. And I did see the show in Austin. Do you plan on doing any solo stops in Austin for the new album book or the upcoming album?
I haven't got any plans at the moment, but I would not be averse to playing Austin. It's a great city to play, and I've got a lot of friends there. Yeah. So yeah, that's quite possible. Yeah, I'm good friends with the Black Angels.
Oh, okay.
Those guys, and we have talked about. Well, they've talked to me about doing something there. I've DJ'd their bar, the 13th floor, a couple of times. A few times.
Yeah, that's a great bar.
Yeah, and then the new location's really great. Very good sound system. Yeah, they're great guys. And I always love that band.
Excellent. Well, I wish you the best of luck with the new album, the new book, and the forthcoming album. And as always, David, it's a pleasure talking to you. So thanks for taking the time out. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Michael. Appreciate it.
Well, that was my chat with David J. Haskins. I hope you enjoyed it. His new poetry book, Rhapsody, Threnody, and Prayer, and album The Mother Tree dropped June 6th via Phonograph Media and Erototox Decodings. To learn more, you can head to davidjhaskins.com. And now, as promised, here's the haunting and beautiful title track from The Mother Tree. I think you're really going to enjoy it. It's a very intense and personal journey that is really moving, and I really enjoy listening to it. I think you will as well. So thanks for listening, and until next time, stay safe and stay sane.
A naked foot falls on the snow and ice. Cook, the local shaman, is taking me to see the Mother Tree. It is located deep in the forest, northern Massachusetts. It is midwinter and the trees are barren and black, in stark relief to the aching white sky. I follow in Cook's wake, amazed at his imperviousness to the cold. Through strip thickets and bramble we trek. The air is still, silent. The crack of brittle twigs under our feet, the only sound. Finally, we reach a clearing, and there she is, the queen of the forest in all her ancient glory, the oldest and the largest there by far. In the center of her mighty trunk, a huge gaping hole. It bears a strong resemblance to an open vagina. The upper branches soar to the heavens and prick the sky, pregnant now with snow. I stand in awe and silently vow to return come summer. A white skating boot comes down hard on the ice. The beautiful young woman in the white sequined outfit, dancing alone and with grace, lost in her own world. She's 18 years old. The blades cleave over the rink. Outside, the Luftwaffe delivers a rain of hellish destruction. High explosive bombs, incendiary bombs, oil bombs, all come crashing down on Birmingham, the second city, place of the defiant girl's birth. When the air raid siren sounded, everyone in the ice hall fled for the shelters. Everyone apart from the lady in white. She choosing to stand her ground and skate on in defiance of Hitler's ire. This is a personal sacred story. This is the cauldron of rebellion, wherein roils the noble urge to resist and then to rise. The brave girl was my mother, and for this act of defiance alone, she will always have my heart. Maroochydore, Queensland, Australia, the mid-90s. Exiled on an island of ineffable pain, the dead stars moving closer. You, formerly crowned as the perfect woman, beached on a king-size bed, bulk buy meat in the deep freeze, an investment of fading faith. The frigid air hum, a backdrop to your agonized demise. May some merciful God send morphine angels to kiss your eyes asleep. Aloe vera wasn't in it. Your complexion of peach and down, the retention of a Monroe glow surviving into dusk. Initiation into voyeurism, attendant on your innocent donning of nylons and suspenders. The mysterious hoist and snap in front of the full-length mirror in my room. Nascent spark of the erotic called to flame. And on some far shore of the subconscious, dark waves crash on the rocks of an Oedipal recollection torn from dream. You gone to Kali, you gone to Hecate, you gone to Persephone and Hades, you gone with the sugar skulls, catacombs and cobwebs, you lost to the mystery of angels on the wing. Something in me died with you. Something in me died. Pull in the gut at the loss of that original cave, sepulchral and perfect primal night. The soft tattoo to beat no more, but stilled, a stop-dead clock, the warming walls of blood grown cold as March. The last time that I saw you was at the airport, standing by the X-ray machine. You looked smaller than ever before. I carried with me a boomerang painted with a snake, 2 symbols of return to take back home. I knew I would never see you again. Lately you were intimate with Morpheus, ancient god of dreams, a kinder deity than the stern Catholic father, patriarchal malcontent who, with wrath and retribution, presided over your trembling girlhood world. Yet at the 11th hour, in the swirl of your drug confusion, you, the lapsed Catholic, would call back the priest from abnegation to administer to you the last rites, much pleasing those pious good neighbors, no doubt. Redemption confirmed to the godly, Eucharist and drip. Your sins were all domestic, gentle and benign, talking in spelled-out letters to Dad to protect us kids from the news of the world. The forgivable deceit of pink dressing gown worn over black cocktail dress, in order to prevent my screams of protest at your imminent departure, but incurring them all the more when the loose sash slipped. The contraband port and brandy, a secret off-license tab, the 20 menthol consulate, until you gave up in the 80s. Oh, and I fat Dave. The oft-repeated, self-deprecating phrase of your later years, incredulous mirth about your voice as you wondered about the cruel abduction of your former beauty pageant self. When I was a baby, you used to rub olive oil into my skin so that I might turn golden in the sun. And in spite of my Irish hair, I do. Thank you, Mum. Thank you, Mum. The last words that I wrote to you across a homemade card, a fallen autumnal leaf mounted on acetate, your passing beating priority mail by 4 days. Recently you had told me of the criminal lack of gas and air, and the agony that heralded my birth. The panacea of anesthesia flown. But you were worth the pain, you said, and those kind words tugged forth a tear. And what of my phantom older brother, the mortified embryo, whose spirit haunted all my climbed trees? What would have been his name? Would that I could have called it in amber summer fields, in market town arcades, my lost knight, bully's nemesis, confidant, a blood pact never sealed. I can almost see his face. In the 60s, I was your runner, for oranges and tea, Jacob's crackers, bread and double cream. In the 70s, the list had changed to brandy, port and fags. Illicit palliative balm for the lonely, tired and lost at sea. The last time that we spoke was on the phone. The 14-hour time difference had expanded to infinity, and you had to find your glasses before you could talk. I told you that I was exactly the same, and we had a good laugh about that. I miss your laugh. I was the firstborn, disaffected, stood in shadow, dazzled and begrudging as you shone the sibling coin. Jealousy, envoy to the danger coiled about the skirts of congealing family blood. Above all this floats your voice, gentle, working class warm, soul of the Midlands, Brummy broad, sweetly singing Someone to Watch Over Me, your favorite song, in the kitchen as you cooked up miracle after miracle on the great black iron stove. Oh, but your cooking! Having nothing to compare it to, I erroneously thought that all food tasted that good. But now I know better and yearn for those long-lost dishes of yore. The Sunday roast with that impossibly perfect puffed-up Yorkshire pudding. Your gravy, thick and rich and brown. Roast potatoes, caramelized and crisp on the outside, light and fluffy white within. Your roast lamb, tender and sprinkled with mint, picked fresh by me from the bottom of the garden. I would always sniff my fingers, intoxicated by the scent. And then there were the desserts. Your lemon meringue pie, light as an angel's whisper, its tart taste peaking after the third day of steeping in the fridge. Your trifle, sherry-laced and decadent, with custard firm and cold. The wonder that was your pineapple upside-down cake, which you said you shouldn't eat, but did. All of these delicacies never to be tasted again. The Portuguese have a word, saudade, which pertains to a deep longing for that which has been loved and lost. And this, for your cooking, is exactly what I feel. Saudade. Saudade. Sometimes your eyes called me stranger, and a galaxy appeared between us. Light years, light years. You were somehow even afraid. Where come this queer anomaly? What part in this my womb? Yet sometimes we were closer than night and dawn. Our David was never an affectionate child. He would never cuddle like Kev. But all along I ached for that embrace. In a house of masks I took down my own and painted it red and black to ward off the complicity of lies. The words I love you would catch on the briar that grew inside my throat. But since you passed, those thorns have now been clipped. I love you. I love you. You were always quarreling with Dad. The heat of your rows pressing against the floorboards of my room. And I wished him far away, to leave you in peace with your G&T, your colour telly, your oranges, and your Mills and Boone. We entered into a confederacy of silence, written in stolen looks, in rapt anticipation of noon and opening time. A temporary calm come to the shore of the suburban semi-detached abode. Shrewd as any tailor, you would always charge for cloth, keep some coppers in the till in case of war, an iron anchor for the drunken sailor, the womanizing rake. You grew fat, sedentary. You loved the great indoors. On the last night that I spent with you, a glowing butter moon hung low in the insect-fertile sky. I took you outside in your carpet slippers to look at it. To look at it. You said, "Thank you for showing me that, love." The grass was wet with dew, nocturnal moisture cooling the Aussie earth. Your courage was a revelation, your stoicism heroic, your ulcerated mouth still made up with lipstick and blistered by the kiss of the bullet for the beast we rarely name. But now you are becalmed, returned to star, and at the heart of that brightest looming light, a mother's voice calling you home. One and a half years after my first visit, I returned to the forest to find the mother tree. This time I was alone. I carried with me your ashes contained in a plastic box. I knew what I had to do. I had every confidence that I would locate the special tree, even though the forest was vast and now in summer looked very different. I followed my instinct and within half an hour came to the clearing. The tree looked bigger than how I remembered it. Dressed in verdant robes, it blazed against the blue of the sky. I sat down and contemplated the act I was about to execute. The ashes poured into the hole. It was as if they had been sucked inside, and there was no doubt in my mind that this was where they were meant to go. When I returned home, I switched on the TV. The first thing that appeared on the screen was a documentary about a native tribe in the Amazon who burn their dead and then bury the ashes at the base of trees in the rainforest so that the spirits can ascend through the branches to the sky. Stunned by this synchronicity, I turned off the set and lit some sandalwood incense, then watched as the coiled smoke rose and the trees dimmed slowly in the dusk.
Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.